About to hear could really be humanity changing information. Intelligence agencies using nanoparticles found in vaccines as a mechanism for telepathy amongst themselves. Think of it as part of this Havana syndrome story.
He was the head of operations, and what he disclosed to us is that this phenomenon, this Havana syndrome, AHI, remember in our last show, we talked about the agents, CIA agents, FBI agents talking about hearing these auditory symptoms, and our diplomats and some congressional members. What he disclosed that this is a communication system that not only MI6 assets and agents are asked by their superiors to take on. And he says it's a form of synthetic telepathy is how their communication, instead of using traditional drop boxes or digital assets and other ways and forms of communications, he says this was the preferred method. And the reason he said it was a preferred method, because if they were in front of an adversary or they were being surveilled, that this would be a very, very discreet, plausible deniability way of communicating and exchanging information, getting orders, and what are they to do next. What he also disclosed is that if an agent does not follow orders or falls out of line, that it is a multifaceted system and then becomes a torture device.
We go back to Project Artichoke. In the 50s and 60s, this was a dream. This was a mission. This was a goal. Well, it's 2026, and that goal has been realized. And the goal simply, again, is that we have a version of synthetic telepathy. And I think it's less more be about the communication. Communication is already pretty foundational. But the fact that the government can remotely torture someone, and this is the story, and we talk about with Havana syndrome victims. And it's not just government workers or CIA or State Department officials. This is happening to regular people that are being targeted for various reasons. And what was described to us wasn't unique to just MI6. The way it was described to us is that every Five Eyes nation is not only using this, but actively trying to find new inventive ways to deploy it, such as, what if you could convince people of a certain political ideology or religion or maybe of a certain task by talking to them like you're the voice of God. And this was the case with, right, the way he described this, the man we spoke to in England. It was something he couldn't stop. It could feel like a distant conversation, a constant voice in your head. Maybe some would misidentify it as God or misidentify it as their internal conscience. But in the case of this, what if it's used in an election? What if it's used while we're bombing Iran? We're telling the people in the country, surrender, surrender, your officials are all dead. I mean, the capabilities are literally only limited by our imagination, but the impact is real. And Clayton, I think for democracies, in America, constitutional republic, how can something like that survive if the government and shadowy officials are able to literally manipulate the mind with no fingerprint left behind after?
Well, I've spoken to CIA whistleblowers, Jesse, who told me that the ultimate goal of the CIA, like if they could list their goals, to understand your thoughts, to control your thoughts, is at the top of that list. And so this is like the ultimate weapon in being able to control and manipulate your thoughts. They've really, in many ways, achieved this, no?
Absolutely. And here's the profound aspect of this. The last frontier is the human mind. Once you conquer the human mind, then you have absolute control. Fortunately, our president recently accelerated the 6G implementation here in the United States. And when he was asked about it, he says, it penetrates a little deeper into the skin, doesn't it?
Right.
I thought that was really bizarre.
Yeah, he made a point of, Edward, talking about the 6G will be able to basically penetrate into the skin. And we won't be able to escape this, right? So really, the way for us to try to escape this or prevent us from being manipulated by 6G is to have this graphene oxide and these other amplifiers maybe out of our blood?
Well, 100%. And what I'd say to President Trump, if I get the opportunity to speak to him for a minute, is, sir, that could be your skin. That could be your family's skin. And we haven't even had a discussion about the national security implications of a foreign power or a tech mogul or somebody having the capability to essentially remote into someone's brain to see what they're seeing, to hear their thoughts, hear what's being said in a room. It's not even a microphone hidden in a desk or a wall anymore. You are the microphone.
And the bottom line right now is they're only acknowledging this is happening to federal employees. And it's important that everyone understands that our leaders need to now recognize that I have been covering this topic on civilians since 2010, along with a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Hall. But if you think you're immune, you're insane yourself, because this is going to happen to someone in your family, your children, your grandchildren, or someone you care about or love dearly, or maybe even a very close friend. No one is immune from this. And this is why it's important. Now is the time. The window of opportunity is so small right now. We're in a paradigm shift where complete slavery, regardless of skin color, is going to be on a plateau that we've never, ever seen.
Edward, final thoughts.
This is the sovereignty of our brains and our soul itself. We must fight now. It's more important than any border or any conflict, because the conflict now is whether a small few are going to have the ability to manipulate our very thoughts. We can't have a free society, let alone freedom in our own lives. So I would just say thank you so much for bringing us on, Clayton. This is going to be part of Died Suddenly 2.